Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today. This past Sunday marked the 7th anniversary of the disappearance of my constituent, Robert Levinson, from Kish Island in Iran. Monday marked Bob's 66th birthday, another birthday spent without his family. I know how committed you are, Mr. Secretary, to returning Bob to his family, and I thank you for your statement of support this past weekend. And I know that you and Undersecretary Sherman continue to raise this case when you meet with the Iranians. I would just ask that you please keep Bob at the highest priority level in all of your meetings and discussions with Iranian leadership. We must use every single opportunity to press for information and cooperation that will lead to his safe return. Mr. Secretary, as you know, also in recent days, 60 rockets were fired from Gaza into southern Israel, some striking near schools and libraries. Islamic Jihad, a militant group funded by Iran, immediately claimed responsibility. The attacks come just a week after Israeli officials intercepted an Iranian shipment of 40 short-range rockets, 181 heavy mortars, 400,000 bullets, and dozens of M203 surface-to-air missiles bound for Islamic Jihad in Gaza. According to Israel's head of military intelligence, Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy, now has as many as 100,000 rockets pointed at Israel and is actively engaged on the ground in Syria in support of the Assad regime. Iran has spent billions of dollars, arms members of its elite Quds force in Syria. And now, despite the parameters set forth in the interim nuclear agreement, statements reported out of Iran this week indicate that Iran may now be unwilling to discuss outstanding questions on the possible military dimensions of their nuclear program. According to the Wall Street Journal, Iran's deputy foreign minister made clear that they're in no rush to discuss these issues, possibly in an attempt to force the P5+1 to extend the interim agreement by showing adherence to other parts of the joint plan of action. Please assure us that the United States and our allies will not allow negotiations to extend beyond 6 months if Iran refuses to address the possible military dimensions of its nuclear program. And finally, Mr. Secretary, if you could just respond in writing to this last point, I'm increasingly concerned that there is a presumptive bias against young Israelis seeking to travel to the United States. Reports indicate that because of widespread visa denials, many student-age travelers simply no longer apply to come to the United States. In fact, on Embassy Tel Aviv's website, there are videos warning young travelers about the risks of violating the terms of their visas. And while I understand that there are cases where the terms of tourist visas are violated, this does not mean that our policy should be to profile young Israelis and to arbitrarily, or as many have suggested, uniformly deny student-age Israelis, citizens of one of our closest allies, the opportunity to visit the United States. I would ask if the policy of presumptive denials exists with any other country, and I would appreciate you getting back to us in writing with the refusal rates of tourist visa applications by age from 16 to 30 over the past 5 years, and I appreciate your being here.
Happy to do so. Look, Israel's a vital partner of ours, obviously. In last year, over 100,000 visas of all ages were issued. 20,000 were issued to Israelis aged 21 to 30 in each of the last fiscal years. Issuance rates about 83%, which is not different from other folks, other places. So we'll be happy to give you greater input on that if you want it. But I can guarantee you that visa applications are treated fairly similarly in all places. With respect to the Gaza Hezbollah, it's a huge concern. I don't know if it's 100,000 or 80,000. A few years ago, everybody was throwing around the number 40,000, then grew to 60. Definitely an increase, huge threat, major problem, based in southern Lebanon and in the Bekaa Valley. Assad has been transferring many of these weapons to them, and they've come through Iran. So it's a double-pronged problem. It's one of the reasons why, when I came before you months ago, I was arguing so vociferously that we needed to pay attention to this overall Syria picture, because it's bigger than just the question of Syria. And this is an example of it. And finally, on the Iran negotiations, we are working at defining those components of the military aspects of the program which we can legitimately fold under, and we're not going to ignore them. Warheads, for instance, are an obvious one. Certain kinds of R&D other examples. And we believe, we interpret appropriately, that the UN resolutions, as well as the joint agreement, JPOA as we call it, both allow for and call for addressing of certain of the military aspects of this. Now, some people assert that goes to every single class of missile or something. I'm not sure it would legitimately do that, to be honest with you. But certainly warhead. And there are military components of this that we're going to have to address in it.
I'd like to ask the members to be cognizant of their time limit and leave the Secretary